Hello everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here. I've been asked on YouTube on my comments to update a few stocks. A lot of people especially interested in Riot, so I just did an update just a few days ago. I generally like to maybe do more like weekly updates rather than trying to like get engagement and get myself bored and get you all bored with these updates. But I do want to talk about just a quick update on 5 of these other miners that I haven't talked about yesterday. One of them is just BitDeer. I'm just going to go through it real quick. I keep saying that, but I'm going to really try and go through it real quick this time. Monthly chart, right? Whales are increasing. I actually find nothing bearish about this chart except that I do see a little bit of resistance. I'm going to show you that in a little bit. But on a monthly, you look at the Bollinger Bands, very, very nicely expanding a little bit. You got the 20-month moving average price made above that so far for the month of July. That's promising. Ichimoku cloud, you don't quite have the cloud yet, but you have a bullish cross that just happened between the Tenkan and Kijun. So generally, that is a bullish indication. Something more bullish could happen soon. Now, if you look into the weekly chart, you can see it's above the Tenkan Kijun is above the Ichimoku cloud, and you also have a very nice bullish cross. If anything, they're kind of pointing towards one another. This is something that's called a little bit called like a katana. Whenever you have the blue crossing over the red, and they kind of go together. Basically, the Tenkan Kijun joins together like a katana, and generally these things are basically saying that there's a big move that's going to come. And I think this might be like the beginning or the mid level, around the mid level of where the big move is coming. It's looking pretty decent. I'm just going to show you an example of what happened with another move that has, like this that had happened before, which is, for example, Robinhood, right? You can see a little bit of katana over here that has precipitated this big giant move up above, right? And you can also look at, like, for example, look at Ethereum. I'm going to look at Ethereum. I'm going to look at the monthly chart here. You can see what happened during the last cycle when you have the two join together, right? So as far as I'm concerned, seeing that katana actually could be a pretty bullish indication for BitDeer moving forward on the weekly time frame, right? Again, you're seeing this kind of like katana thing over here. Whalish momentum is in. So I think that it's going to push up above higher, but I do think there's a little bit of resistance here at $12. I'll show you why in a second. But other indicators, Bollinger Bands, a little bit about the upper Bollinger Band, not crazy overextended, but it's overextended, but it can keep getting overextended for a long time. So it's not really that big of a concern for me. Look at this, super itchy is also way above the Tenkan over here too of the blue line, so nothing to worry about. Even the turtle pro signal, which basically gives you this EMA ribbon on the 20 and 50 week, it also signaled a buy right here a few weeks ago, and so far you have a very nice green ribbon over here that's forming. So far so good, right? Everything's looking pretty decent. So when I'm talking about resistance, well, you are going a little bit overextended here on the Bollinger Band. So at some point you're gonna start feeling a little bit of resistance. I just don't know when that's gonna be. But if you pull up the GAN here, and I'm gonna pull out the volume here, you can see just based on the GAN, you're kind of getting close to some of the resistance levels here above, right? Like the bottom of the arc over here, which seems to be potentially resistance over here around 12. And you have the Fibonacci level around 12.2, like around 0.786, a little bit confluent zone of resistance, even a little bit above you at like 12.8, 13, somewhere up here around like 12 to 13 is probably going to be relatively strong resistance. But again, you have the katana of the Ichimoku cloud to kind of help support and potentially move higher from there because of the katana, right? And then on top of that, you're also talking about, why am I saying around like, anywhere from like 12 to 13 is going to be resistance. Well, there's still a volume shelf up here that hasn't been gone over yet, right? This volume shelf, when was it formed? It was formed really around like, the entire year 2023, when price just kind of got stuck around here, around 12 to even like upwards to like 14 and a half range, So I do think that anywhere from like 12 to 13, because of this confluence over here, all the way up to maybe like 14, 15, this is going to be a pretty strong resistance zone over here. I don't know how fast it's going to end up pushing through. I don't know where it's going to get rejected. If it gets rejected, where do I think it's going to be a strong support? I'll say like $10. It's going to be strong support. And it's like, I think probably absolute worst is probably going to be this angle over here around like 8.8, which is around the 0.5 Fibonacci level. I think that's probably going to be the worst the correction is going to go, right? So you're talking about upwards to maybe 12 to 13, downwards possibly 10. The highest range it goes around like 14.5, 14, 15. Lowest it goes probably around 8.8. So you can kind of manage your risk expectations, things like that. I think that it's not a bad idea if you want to enter. You just have to know what your downside risks are. And none of this is financial advice, of course. Go and look at the other stock here that I think there's a lot more chatter on with PDPT. BTBT is interesting because they actually have a very interesting strategy. What they are holding and staking Ethereum. So if you want, theoretically, you want some Ethereum exposure, BTBT may not be a bad play moving forward. You do have whales coming in on the monthly chart, which is promising. You do have 3 green candles in a row, and it looks like for the month of July so far, we're trying to challenge the Tenkan line over here. You had a bullish cross over here that happened back in February 2024. So there's a little bit of resistance which we're trying to get above over here. Right now the Tenkan is around 3.5. We did end up closing a little bit above that. But the candle is not closed yet. You know, it's a July candle. So next thing you know, it can still end up being stuck in the range over here for a little bit longer before going up or before, you know, going down to test some of the stuff. But again, with whales kind of coming in, with the bullish cross over here that we had, with the fact that I still, you know, I mentioned when I was thinking about, you know, Ethereum, Bitcoin, I still think this thing's probably going to end up, you know, pushing up higher whenever it breaks out of this range over here. So that's the monthly chart for BTBT. And also if you look at the Bollinger Band, you also have a very nice 20-month moving average here starting at support now, crawling up, right? So if you need support, I think 2.5, 2.6 is going to be pretty decent support, shall we need it. Looking at the Bollinger Band on the weekly, just looking at the weekly chart, you see like whales have increased significantly over the last 7 weeks. And you can also see the price a little bit over the upward Bollinger Band, so we're a little bit overextended over here. So would it be a good spot to buy here? I don't know, but you can see like sometimes you can just get things kind of overextended here for a very long time. So I wouldn't necessarily be worried right now, but just something to kind of think about. Look at the Ichimoku cloud is still kind of stuck at the Ichimoku cloud. Top of the Ichimoku cloud here is around what, like 3.62, somewhere around there. So you kind of potentially hitting some resistance up here, right? Something to think about. And another thing to look at the Tsubishi cloud, same thing, you have like a little bit of resistance up here above, around 3.74, somewhere around there. So you know, it's still kind of hitting some resistance here, so maybe there's a little bit of reason to kind of get cautious. But even if you're hitting resistance, you know, you still have some pretty decent support down here around 2.9, and it's showing you 2.6 for your 20-month moving average. And you also have the bottom of the cloud over here around 3.1, so you have some pretty decent support over here, right? Whereas if it breaks above the cloud, how far do you think it's going to go? Let's take a look at it. By the way, if you look at the EMA ribbon is like way above that right now. You don't quite have a buy signal by Turtle Pro system, but you know, it's getting pretty close. Well, if you're able to break about the 3.6, 3.7 range, you probably hit $4 and $5 somewhere around here. $4 is going to be the horizontal zone of the GAN. It has served as some pretty important levels here previously, you know, and also, you know, both in terms of support and resistance, right? So that could be a pretty important zone over here. And the $5 is going to be the 0.136 retracement, which we got rejected twice here so far. So those are probably going to be some important levels if it's able to break about the 3.6, 3.7 of the Ichimoku cloud over here. So that's BTBT. Actually, like, to be completely honest with you, with this increasing Welsh momentum, if I had to pick a miner out of these 5 miners I'm going to talk about to allocate money to, I would probably choose either BitDeer or BTBT. That would probably be my choice. And if I really seriously am choosing, I might end up choosing BTBT just because of the way that it kind of looks, and also because I actually know a little bit about their fundamentals. I think there might be some reasons to think that they might be a little bit undervalued. But anyway, that's a different story for a different time. Looking at HUT, look at what's going on with HUT, right? Wellish momentum's coming back in. We're hitting a little bit of an important resistance zone. You don't really need any, you know, indicator to kind of show you that this is an important resistance zone over here that I've been trying to break above, and has previously served as support, you know, just a couple of years ago. Well, if you look at Ichimoku cloud, you don't quite have the bullish cross, but things are above the Tenkan Kijun, so that's a positive. If you look at the Bollinger Band, you can see that 20-month moving average is curling up, so all these are pretty decent look to HUT. But again, you are at very important horizontal resistance over here, so that's just something to kind of keep in mind. Looking at the weekly here, what is the weekly doing? Way outside the upper Bollinger Band here, increasing relish momentum. Should we be concerned? Well, things can stay outside the upper Bollinger Band here for weeks and weeks on end, right? So I'm not really necessarily that concerned about it. Like over here, like you have weeks just kind of closing about the upper Bollinger Band, so I wouldn't necessarily be that worried about it. But I do want to take a look at some of the important resistance and support level. It broke above the cloud. That's an important the development. It also seems like it's breaking about the Sabichi cloud over here too. So it's also a pretty important development. Looking at the EMA ribbon, you have a buy signal over here on the weekly, by the Turtle Pro system, which is something to think about. And that happened a couple of weeks ago, right? Another couple of things to kind of look at would be where we are in terms of resistance and support based on Gann and Fibonacci level. We're able to break above the 0.136, so in a way it's better than BTBT. But we're also hitting this arc resistance here. If we're able to break above this arc resistance, I think next level is probably going to be up here at the 0.3236 level, around like 22.5. That's going to be initially the next level, which we hit previously, right? And it's kind of interesting, we got rejected here at the angle and at the arc and at this Fibonacci level. So right now I think it's important to look at this arc, whether or not we can break above this arc over here. We'll see, right? Now, what are some of the support levels though if it needs to come back down? I mean, you have the Ishimoku cloud right here. Bottom Ishimoku clouds around like 12.3, 12.4. You also have a very important horizontal zone here around like 10.3. So I think those are going to be like the absolute levels most likely. The bottom of the cloud is also probably getting close to the Tengen Decision over here whenever that happens, right? So that would be your downside, but you can also just kind of back test the 0.136 that it just recently broke out from. Form a little bit of triangle here before breaking out, right? That's also a possibility. But if you're talking about breaking out of resistance, you're really talking about maybe hitting like 22.5. It's going to be like the next natural gravitation point, if you will. So that's HUT 8. CORZ, I don't really have a whole lot to say about it because there's really not a whole lot to chart. All I really have to say about CORZ is that initially you were outside of upper Bollinger Band and things just had to correct for a few weeks. And ended up doing that. Right now we're back inside, right? So that's a positive development. And things haven't really been around for that long because they went bankrupt and they just came back public again. So you only have maybe like 25 weeks of data here. But now they're on the 25th week, you have a very nice Bollinger Band expansion, and you have a nice 20-week moving average nicely pointing up. But things are pretty impulsive, right? You're hitting a lot of volume over here, which means that you have a lot of resistance over here at the zone around $10. So we'll see what happens. I don't have enough data to really kind of give you an idea in terms of what I think is going to happen. I can't draw like Fibonacci, I can't draw Gann. So this is just something to kind of keep in mind. If you look at the daily though, daily does look a little bit more promising because this looks like a little bit of bullish engulfing candle for the entire week and a half. So it looks like it wants to go higher. And if anything, 20-day moving average is also pointing up, potentially serving as support. So I think you also have a little bit of a daily, Bollinger Band squeeze over here. So I think the next move is probably going to be, a bigger move up. But I wouldn't rule out necessarily going back down, to like 7.8 or something like that before going up higher, right? That's also a possibility. So that's CORZ. Now RIOT is an enigma. A lot of people ask me about RIOT. I'm just going to tell you, like, I am still, overall conceptually bullish on RIOT. But if you're talking about, opportunity cost, you're talking about like momentum. RIOT does not have any momentum right now. It just doesn't. I'm not going to lie, like there's not much whalish momentum over here on the monthly. On the weekly, there's not much whalish momentum over here either. It's just been declining. Retail's been staying about the same, but there's really not a whole heck of a lot of momentum here going forward. I don't have to tell you that. If you're an owner for RIOT, you've already experienced it. The thing about RIOT too is you also talking about a lot of potential resistance above. You're talking about the Shimoku cloud. You have the Tengen Decision right above here around like 12 to 13, right? So that's going to be resistance. You're talking about the Bollinger Band with the 20-month moving average right around like 10, 11, somewhere up here. That's going to be resistance, right? So RIOT has a lot of resistance above that it needs to break through, and it needs to prove itself. With the EMA ribbon is still underneath a red ribbon, so that's basically telling you that you don't really have a bull trend. Things just been kind of oscillating around for way too long. So right now you have you have a sell signal over here. You don't quite really have any buy signal yet. So things are just oscillating. Now whenever it moves, it could be a very big move, but so far there's no momentum, and opportunity cost is a real thing. So just be cautious. I do think that if you buy RIOT, you can probably sleep at night very, very well, knowing one thing is that I actually think that RIOT has bottomed based on my Gann chart, because when I was looking at my can a couple months ago, I thought that this level here is going to be serve as a very good support here at the angle, and sure enough, it's formed a very, very nice hammer candle, right? Bump back up, you have a little bit of Welsh momentum there, but since then it's just been decreasing Welsh momentum all over again. And right now we're hitting the angle again here twice. You have a little bit of support over here, right? So let's see if the support holds. I do think that RIOT has bottomed though, for what that's worth, right? Now you also look at the Bollinger Band. You also have a little bit of squeezy, but the Bollinger Support Band is still pointing down, and still potentially going to serve as resistance over here to around like 10.8 or so. You know, just like the monthly 20-month moving average. So it's you know, got a lot of resistance, got a lot of support of down here too at the arc. Sorry, at the angle. So we'll see what happens. I just wish there's a little bit more Welsh momentum to support the move, but you know, just like all the other big Bitcoin miners, looks like maybe a little bit of a bigger move is coming. I just don't know when that's going to be, and I got to be fair. You know, Ichimoku Cloud on the weekly, you can see that it's not really reclaimed the Tenkan quite just yet. It's around $10. It's not really quite been able to get back above it for like months now, right? And you're also talking about some resistance level up here around like all the way from 13 to around 14. You also have the arc right here is also resistance, right? So there's a lot of resistance over here. Now, if you ask me whether or not this is a good spot, if you want to get into RIOT, this is a good spot, even though it's been beneath a bunch of resistance. I would say probably if you really want to get into RIOT, probably this might be a decent spot to enter, just because it's stuck in a range of the angles, and it's stuck in you know, underneath these resistance over here, but at least it's kind of towards the bottom of a range, you know what I mean? Like I'm not absolutely like too bullish on it right now or anything, because it still needs to prove itself, but I still think that it's a pretty decent potential support over here, as this trend line has been going on since December 2022. Now, if it breaks below where it's going to go, $7, I think that's probably going to be like the absolute low that it would go. I don't think it's going to necessarily go that low, but the absolute low is going to be around $7, right at the Fibonacci level, right around there. So just something to kind of think about. I am not entering RIOT, but a lot of people ask me about it, so those are my thoughts. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good one. Bye.